Kevin Harvick tells Dale Jr. that he originally planned to retire this year. Meanwhile, 2 top Truck Series rides get taken, and the mayor of Nashville reveals his plan for Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope your week is going well. We have a lot to react to today, but first, if you're not already following my TikTok, be sure to click that link down in the description below. Been posting a lot of fun stuff, including some clips from this show, so be sure to check it out. Kevin Harvick was this week's guest on the Dale Jr. Download, a very highly anticipated episode, and he dropped a few very interesting nuggets. We'll react to his comments on retirement, as well as some interesting things he said about the next gen car at the end of this episode, and I encourage you guys, of course, to go listen to the full Dale Jr. Download episode. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about Nashville Fairgrounds some more, and we've got some big silly season news to react to, and I've got some thoughts. Let's begin with silly season first. Junior Motorsports announced today that Miguel Paludo will return to the team for 3 Xfinity races next year: Circuit of the Americas, Road America, and the Indianapolis Road Course race over the summer. He will drive the number 88 Chevrolet with Brandt as a major sponsor. I'm excited to see, hopefully, that fun red and green yellow Brandt car that we saw on track for a couple races this past year. That thing looked fantastic. Of course, Paludo made 3 Xfinity starts this year. He's a veteran road course racer from Brazil. Very talented, very accomplished. He finished 7th at the Daytona Road Course this past February, so excited to see what he can do in a few more road course race starts. More silly season news. Let's shift to the Truck Series. Hattori Racing Enterprises will be a 2-truck team next year. That's pretty cool. Hattori is a championship contending organization. Now we're gonna have 2 contenders out of that shop? Whoa! Oh, maybe not so fast. This week they revealed the 2 full-time drivers that will race for them next year. They first announced that Chase Purdy will drive the 61 truck, and today they announced that Tyler Ankrum will drive the 16. I mean, I'm happy for those 2. Great opportunity, championship caliber organization. That's pretty cool, but I'm calling it now. At least one of them misses the playoffs this year. I mean, on the surface, it looks like Hattori Racing Enterprises signed the 2 worst drivers from GMS this year to their team for next year. Like, I don't understand this. Well, no, I completely understand it. Both these drivers bring sponsorship. Chase Purdy has Bama Buggies, who's been with them for like 5 years, and looks like Tyler Ankrum has Luna. They were on his truck a lot this last year at GMS. He's bringing them over to Hattori. So this is a sponsorship play. These drivers have funding. That's why they're getting these seats. Simple as that. Because from a statistical standpoint, they did absolutely nothing to impress in 2021. Tyler Ankrum had 7 DNFs, Chase Purdy had 6. Both drivers missed the playoffs in GMS equipment, while their teammates Sheldon Creed, Zane Smith were in the championship 4, winning races. They are both young, so there's a chance they could both take a big step forward this year, develop quite a bit, learn a lot more. Chase Purdy is 22, Tyler Ankrum is 20. And it is the Truck Series after all. A lot of these races get very sloppy, turn into kind of wild card events. I don't mean to be such a Debbie Downer, but there are high expectations if you're in a Hattori truck. I mean, Austin Hill just won 2 races this past season. Circumstances worked against him in the playoffs, but for much of this year, he was seen as a legit championship contender. That's the expectation if you drive for Hattori. Chase Purdy and Tyler Ankrum will be expected to be, at the very least, playoff drivers and probably championship contenders, and I don't think they will. So I'm excited that Hattori is going to be a 2-truck team. Those are both fast trucks, presumably. I can't say I'm excited about the drivers in their seats. Hey, it's up to those guys to prove me wrong. Chase Purdy, Tyler Ankrum, go out there and prove me wrong next year. I'm prepared to eat those words 9-10 months from now, but those are just my thoughts right now. Now, in yesterday's video, we talked a lot about Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway and about how the mayor of Nashville was expected to announce a deal with the track, with Bristol, with Speedway Motorsports, a plan, if you will, to bring NASCAR back to the fairgrounds in the next few years. Well, as I was wrapping up editing that video, as I was uploading that video yesterday, the actual plan got released. There weren't a whole lot of new surprises buried within, but we did get some pretty cool renderings of what the track may look like. Check this out. Ooh, I slipped a couple of these into the video yesterday, but here you can take a better look at what the proposed new grandstands would look like. The track's expected to be repaved should this deal be approved. I also have to ask, why are they using the 2017 Matt Kenseth DeWalt scheme, or 2018 Eric Jones car? Why is that? That's clearly what that model is. You can blur it as much as you want. I will recognize a DeWalt car from a mile away. But no, these renderings look really cool. I have to agree with my friend the Iceberg, who tweeted that gives them sort of an old school baseball stadium style feel. I love that, and I completely agree. The big Coca-Cola sign over there going into turn 1, I love that. Again, this deal, this plan needs to be approved by the Board of Fair Commissioners and the Metro Council, so there could still be some hangups along the way, but right now it sounds like the hope is that a NASCAR series will be racing at Nashville Fairgrounds by 2024. The Nashville Tennessean outlined this entire proposed plan in great great detail. In this article, it mentions that the mayor of Nashville, John Cooper, back in March was planning to budget around $50 million for this project. But apparently, and this is from the article, the city's vision for the facility has expanded since that time, and the price is beyond that early projection. And revenue projections have also increased, a Bristol Motor Speedway spokesperson stated. The budget will increase to approximately $75 million, according to Cooper's administration. And that's going to help pay for things like the installation of sound barriers to help mitigate some of the noise concerns, as well as expanding the grandstands. The plan is for Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway to seat 30,000, which would, I believe, would give it a lower capacity than any other track on the current NASCAR Cup Series schedule. That's just off the top of my head because I think the lowest capacity right now is like Phoenix, which is around 40,000. Watkins Glen, I know there's maybe some hillside space and stuff, but I think that's around 40,000. I guess for the Truck and Xfinity Series, I don't know, like Knoxville Raceway in Iowa probably has a lower capacity. I don't know, but for the Cup Series, 30,000 would be the lowest, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Making the Nashville Fairground ticket a hot commodity, I think there's something to that. Again, there is something to that less is more, and optics matter a lot. Full grandstands, even if it's only 30, 40,000, like look back at the SRX race from the summer at Nashville Fairgrounds. I don't remember the exact number, but wasn't it like 15,000 fans at that race? But the optics on TV of packed grandstands gave that event a much more electric atmosphere, even though 15,000, I mean, that's less than half even the lowest Cup Series races get these days. Anyway, again, this all still needs to be approved, and there will be some pushback from some in the local community. We'll see how this develops, but you got the mayor of Nashville, you've got Speedway Motorsports, Dale Earnhardt Jr. throwing their support behind it. You've got powerful people in play. I think this will get done. The question is now when, not necessarily if. Although if is still technically a question. Got to get approved. A lot going on this week. Let's talk about the upcoming Clash at the LA Memorial Coliseum. This February, Cup Series is going to race inside a football field. Well, this week Fox reworked some of the scheduling, and now the entire event from pre-race show through the main event will be on main Fox. Originally, there was some programming, including the main events, scheduled for FS1, which is cable, reaches less households. Now anyone with a TV and an antenna pretty much will be able to watch the entirety of the Busch Clash at the Coliseum. This is exciting. This is what the new schedule looks like. The pre-race show begins at 2 p.m. Eastern time. The heat races and last chance qualifiers will be at 3. Then there's another pre-race show before the main event at 5. And the main event, the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, will be at 6 p.m. Eastern time. All on Big Fox, as you can see. That's going to be more than 6 hours straight of NASCAR coverage on Fox, on main Fox, the week before the Super Bowl in the same city that the Super Bowl will be held in. That's pretty cool for NASCAR. I do think it's interesting, all those times, like I said, are Eastern, which means the heat races will be happening at noon local time in LA where the race is being held, so it'll be broad daylight. The main event starts at 3, I guess. In my head, and I know we've known the schedule for a long time, but when they first talked about racing at the LA Coliseum, I thought it'd look cool as a night race. I don't know what the logistics would be like, especially winter. It probably gets a little colder at night. So maybe this is gonna be more comfortable for fans. I'll be there in person, so maybe I'll appreciate it being during the day. But personally, I do think it would look a little cooler if they raced this at night, if the main event at least was happening under the lights. But still, I'm not gonna complain. I think it's gonna be a sight to behold regardless of the time of day. Just watching 20 or 23, 24 cars try to race in the tight confines of a football stadium. Like, it's going to be a spectacle. Whether good or bad, we don't know yet. It will be a spectacle. It'll be a heck of a way for the next gen car to introduce itself to the world. Anyway, now, I know this is the first thing you saw in the title, but I wanted to get to all that other stuff first. Let's talk about some of Kevin Harvick's comments on Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast. Again, I encourage you to go listen to the full episode. I'll link it down in the description below. Dale Jr. download. Kevin Harvick was this week's guest. I want to highlight a couple interesting points, a couple interesting conversations that Kevin Harvick, Dale Jr., and the team over there had. First, and what Kevin Harvick fans will probably find the most interesting, Harvick says that originally the plan was for him to retire after this season, at the end of 2021.
I thought you were going to be done.
I was.
Really?
That 21 was originally it.
How far did that conversation get?
I mean, as far as, you know how it goes, as far as the financial planning and how life was going to look. And
you had it all set up.
It was all set up. We started having conversations about what we were going to do next, and that led to, 2 more years and 22 and 23. And I think at this point in my career, it's really just about being at the racetrack with the group of people and the people that you like being around. I love the competitive side of it. And being in there and being able to develop a new car.
Yeah.
And have that knowledge.
Are you sure that that's not going to be the most frustrating thing you've ever done?
It's going to be frustrating.
Now, the timeline is not entirely clear, but Kevin Harvick signed his current contract a couple of years ago. He signed right now with SHR through 2023, which means he has at least 2 full years of Cup racing ahead of him. So I imagine what he's talking about there, the conversations he had, discussing the future finances and stuff, it sounds like those are probably conversations he had a couple of years ago. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe he was contemplating retirement at the beginning of this year. Maybe that was on his mind. I have no idea, but still, I thought that was really interesting. Ultimately, Harvick sounds like he's committed to racing for the next 2 years. He said that publicly before. He sounds very excited about the next gen car, which I found very interesting. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Focusing on retirement talk, Kevin Harvick did bring up broadcasting. He does say that, broadcasting is not going to have the same competitive element that driving a race car or competing has, but he does say that driving the next gen car next year, and presumably the year after that, will make him a better, more informed broadcaster.
I enjoy the broadcasting piece of it, but it doesn't really have that competitive element that goes with driving the car, owning the car, working on a race team, those pieces of that competition. So even broadcasting, driving that new car and understanding that new car, being a part of the development, in my opinion, makes you more valuable just because of the fact that you know a lot about the race car.
So I know Fox has not announced a third person for their TV booth next year. I am still holding out, hoping and praying that it is not just Mike Joy and Clint Boyer the whole first half of next year. That I don't think I can do it. But after 2023, perhaps it sounds like Kevin Harvick is already lobbying or is at least open to the idea of maybe moving up to the TV booth full time, similar to what Clint Boyer has done, what Dale Earnhardt Jr. has done over at NBC. We've heard him call Xfinity and truck races periodically the last couple of years. He's pretty good at it. I'd say he's led the drivers only broadcasts a couple of times. He's very good at it. So I think Harvick would be really good on TV, but he's really good on the racetrack still. He's going to do that for, it sounds like, the next 2 full seasons at least. Kevin Harvick is the oldest full-time driver in NASCAR. He's about to turn 46 years old. Dale Jr. had already retired at this point. Jimmy Johnson already retired. Matt Kenseth had already left Joe Gibbs Racing by this point, but Harvick is still going. And I know I gave Harvick a lot of grief late this season, mainly because I don't agree with the way he handled the aftermath of the Bristol incident with Chase Elliott. But whenever someone questions Kevin Harvick's driving ability, I have to question them because Kevin Harvick is still one of the top drivers. I would argue the top driver in NASCAR today. Like, no joke. I know he made a few missteps late in the season, and I know his cars were obviously not good, so SHR as a whole was a big fail this year. But Kevin Harvick was the ultimate trooper. I mean, while most of his teammates were outside of the top 25 in points this year, top 25! Harvick consistently held on to a top 10 spot and actually had the 4th best average finish this season across all 36 races. So even though he's the oldest full-time driver in the sport, he is still arguably the best. So I'm glad that Harvick sounds committed to racing 2 more years. Now, real quick, I want to bring up some comments that Harvick also made in this podcast episode about the next gen car. Like I said, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be frustrating at times, but Kevin Harvick talked about the recent Charlotte test when SHR cars put a different tapered spacer in and actually ran higher horsepower, not 550. They ran 670 at an intermediate. He talks about how once they did that, he had to lift a little bit more and he thought the car actually drove a lot better.
At the end of that test, we put, I guess it would be the Xfinity spacer on there and gave it 670 horsepower, and you had to start letting off the throttle, and you would have still been wide open through 1 and 2. But when you have to start, you have to be able to, if you're really going to have all those things that you just talked about with the cars sliding around and being able to move around the racetrack and having the tires fall off, has to be able to spin the back tires. We put more power on there. I'm like, man, this thing actually drives better. I still have to lift a little bit in 3 and 4. They're like, well, the faster you go, the more that that underpan is going to make more power because you're going faster, so it makes more speed. It's going to make more grip.
So the reason those comments stood out to me are because lately there have been some rumblings, some rumors that in these upcoming intermediate tests, NASCAR may put more horsepower in the cars. The exact number is not specific. It might be 670. Some people are even saying it'll be 750. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but you hear what Kevin Harvick says right there. The car drove better with more horsepower in it. Like, you'd expect him to say that. But if every driver's saying that, if the results speak for themselves at these tests, we could actually see NASCAR add horsepower to the intermediate package. I know, shocking, right? I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. I'm so sorry, but they've already tested it once with those SHR cars at Charlotte last week. They ran 670 horsepower, and it sounds like at least one of the drivers really liked the result. We're only about 2 months away from the first next-gen race, so any radical shifts in the rules package this late in the game would be perhaps a little jarring, but I think many fans and most all drivers would welcome a small horsepower bump by the time February rolls around. We'll see what happens. Again, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but I heard Harvick's comments there on this podcast, and I thought it was at least worth highlighting briefly. Anyway, y'all, that's all I've got for this episode. I know we talked about pretty much everything. Share your thoughts down below. I expect a wide variety of comments. We covered a lot. Hattori stuff, Kevin Harvick retirement and next gen talks, Nashville Fairgrounds, the LA Clash schedule, and much, much more. Share your thoughts down in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. You may not believe me, and that's okay, but I do genuinely read like probably 90% of the comments I get on this channel. I get hundreds, sometimes thousands of comments per video, and I at least skim over almost all of them. Just, you may not believe me, but that's the truth. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I definitely see all of your comments. I greatly appreciate the support. I will see you later this week. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday, y'all. Thank you for watching.